Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are we all doing today? I'm not doing too bad. It's about 12 o'clock in the afternoon at the moment. She's about... No, sorry. It's 1:24 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm currently working on a client's computer, which it's in the process. I have to back up his files firstly, which is the first part of the situation. So I'm going to back his files up. Now, what I've actually got here is, this is my external drive that I use on a regular basis. It's got a copy of Windows 7 on it, which I use to be able to access certain things. Well, it's obviously not a genuine one because it's hard to activate stuff like that. But ask later. I don't care about that. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I mean, it's basically just to access files. That's pretty much the entirety of what it's for. So at this point in time, I've booted it off this drive, which is my OS. Well, it's the main drive I use for doing any type of activity that relates to repairs anyway. So any data or anything like that I back up, and it's obviously got a copy of a few things on there as well. So what I normally do, typically in this situation, is, as you can see, the client's hard drive is there. You see, it's right there. So you got all the data and everything else. Typically, what I do is I'll go through and I will back up the documents folder and things of that nature. Normally, as you can see, there's a few errors on the drive as well. Obviously, it needs to be formatted and the operating system needs to be reinstalled on the system. So that's alright, I can do that for him, not an issue. It's not a problem. So what I'm actually going to do with this, or what the pace I'm going to proceed from, is pretty much backing up the files first. So typically I'll go into the users folder. I'll make a copy of the users folder with all the data and everything else and things like that. I will check sometimes if there's any other files lying around that I think might be relevant. But basically the users folder has got your My Documents folders and videos and photos and things like that. Typically that's where those things are stored. So what I'll do is I'm going to make a backup copy of that onto there. I will put it onto an external hard drive that he gave me, which I haven't powered that up yet, but I will power it up soon enough. But that pretty much this whole job that I'm doing here at the moment, it's probably not more than an hour's worth of work. I mean, the backing up data might take a little bit longer than an hour, but typically I don't charge for the fact that something's copying over to another drive. There's no point in doing that because it's just ridiculous, charging somebody for the time that something's copying, because it all depends on the machine and how fast the machine copies it. But typically, basically you're looking at an hour's... I mean, an hour's worth of work, pretty much. Sorry about that. But yeah, typically what you're looking at here is an hour's worth of work. So what I have to do... Oh my god. I haven't had any coffee this morning, so yeah. So typically what you have to do this morning... typically what you have to do with this is just back up the users folder. So that's the first point of call. For me, that's the first thing I'm going to do. I did, before this, I tried recovery options. I tried doing recovery options, but unfortunately they didn't work. Any of the startup repair stuff or any of the system restore obviously is corrupt, so it's not working correctly. I had to this is my point, I had to use my own copy of Windows on here to be able to access everything, unfortunately, so that's the only way it was going to go about. But that's pretty much what as I said, this is about an hour's worth of work in retrospect, but still not a bad little thing to sort of muck around with. The client originally bought me the laptop and it came to me this way. There's 2 keys missing on the keyboard. It's up to him whether he wants to replace those keys or not. I'm not going to say to him, replace the keyboard, because, I mean, it's only 2 keys, firstly, and those keys themselves, they're pretty, I mean, from what I can tell, most of the stuff is working on the laptop itself, and from what I can see. I mean, the other side of it too is it's up to him whether he replaces the keyboard or not. What he told me and the things that he's informed me about is the fact that the OS wasn't loading correctly, which I could clearly see the OS wasn't. So that's my point. There is a problem with the OS. I'm not going to proceed to say that the keyboards is something that needs fixing. It's up to him whether he wants to get it fixed. But I will make a suggestion to him. I'll say, look, you might want to get your keyboard replaced at some point because, there's a couple of keys that don't work and everything else, and it might be an idea to get it replaced at some point. Now, he's probably going to look at about $50 for the keyboard itself, you know, and you're looking for probably about an hour's worth of labour to replace it, depending, I mean, it depends on how many screws there is required for the keyboard. I'd say there's probably not that many. I mean, there's probably a couple in the back that you require. It's always typically, they mark them off on the back of the laptop, screws specifically for the well, in most cases, they'll mark them on the back of the laptop, the screw that holds down the keyboard, typically. So, I mean, at the end of it, you know, it's the other thing too. I mean, ordering parts in, that's another thing as well. Typically, I order parts in myself, well, you know, when I do have to deal with a client and things that happen in that situation. So, yeah. Anyway, at this point, though, what I have worked out, I also had to reset his password as well, because apparently he'd forgotten his password. He tried to put his password originally in to do the recovery options and he couldn't get it to work. So I reset the password, which I've got a little disk that I use. It's a little disk here, right here. It's a Windows password remover. A little writable disk, but yeah. That's a little password remover program that I use, which I typically use that if it's the case the client's completely forgotten the password. So, you know, I mean, that happens from time to time. I mean, it happens from time to time that people forget their password, so, you know, it's inevitable. I mean, it depends on the version of Windows you've got. I think that works for Windows 10, so it works all the way up to Windows 10 anyway. So let me see. What else we got? So we've got basically recovery options here. So at this point, I'm going to make a backup of his data. So that's pretty much where I'm going to proceed with this entire thing. I probably won't record any more of this, but this is just for posterity. Well, not just for posterity, this is for my own records too. Just to show people the type of work that I get sometimes. And you know what? I can clearly see that the keyboard does need replacing, but I'm not going to say to the client that he has to replace it now, and it's something he has to do straight away. I'm going to look at that and say, okay, it's workable, you know, it can be used. It's not a problem. But if he wants to replace the keyboard, he can. I will say to him, look, you probably want to replace the keyboard at some point, because I don't know whether that key actually works there. Because that key seems to be, yeah. I'd say that key doesn't work. But the first port of call is I'm fixing the OS. I'm going to fix the OS for him. It's up to him whether he later on chooses to fix the OS on, sorry, not the OS, whether he chooses to get the keyboard repaired. That's his choice. I'm not going to say to him that he has to get it repaired, because I mean most of the keys, pretty much every key except bar that one works on the keyboard. So in my mind, it's still a workable framework. Ideally, I wouldn't want that to be the case. I wouldn't want to have that button not working. But you know what? There's always ways around those things. Firstly, there's different ways around it. But I mean, with computer repairs, there's always different ways around things. Say, for example, okay, now that key there is the tab, the caps lock, which is, you know, annoying to have to. I don't want to restart later. Which is, yeah, I admit it's annoying not having it there, but you can just get around it by pushing, you know, shift, pretty much, like, just to get the capital letter you want. So it's not a major key, or it's not a major key component to the computer that, you know, you can live without it, basically. It's not required. But ideally, you want all the keys on the keyboard working on a computer, ideally. But I've always been the type of person who, you know, I've always been, you know, well, I don't know, as I said, there's always a way to get around things. It's always my point anyway. So don't save. So yeah. So aside from that, what else have we got? Some other things. So at this point, I'm going to back those files up. So I'm going to back those files up. I'm going to proceed to do that. And this is just basically a little video on some of the type of repairs and things that I get. Now, saying that, if the entire lot of keys was missing, and like there's practically no keys on the keyboard, there was barely any keys, I may consider. No, I will pretty much. If there's like a dozen freaking keys missing off this, my first protocol is going to say, look, you're going to have to get a new keyboard, because the truth is you can't work with that. The only thing you can do is you can plug a USB keyboard in to get around that. I would have done that as a technician. But the truth is, even if you do that, you're still going to have a dodgy-ass keyboard that doesn't work. So if you are missing a ton of keys, the first protocol is to replace the keyboard. I'm sorry, but that's just my personal opinion anyway. But definitely going to say, in my mind, that is probably the first port of call. But, I mean, something like that, missing a tab key, which is the capital, you know, or your capital, well, it's not, yes, you click it down to have capitals, but there's always a way around it. You just push Shift A and bang, you know, you're done. And you can type capitals, it doesn't matter. But this is the point that I'm trying to make. This is the type of stuff that I get when I get some repairs. I've also had repairs, I've had cracked screens, I've had bad keyboards that have, you know, obviously, whatever, your kids, they got into them, they pulled them apart or things like that, which that does happen, you know what, it does. But the truth is, sometimes it's, sometimes with some keyboards it's just easier to replace the whole damn thing. But this keyboard itself is pretty good, it's not too bad, so I'm not going to complain too much. But anyway, I'll go back to what I did. Basically, the OS on there is Cactus, so I need to reinstall it. I used my external drive with a copy of Windows 7 on there. It's not an official version, because you can't really do that when you're constantly activating it on different machines. But this has got Windows. It's got a basic copy of Windows 7 on there. You know, it's nothing fancy. So, I mean, basically, it's just to get data off. So it doesn't need to be. It doesn't have to be fully functional as an OS. So, you know, it's not. Yeah, doesn't matter really. So yeah, pretty much that's the type of work I get. Some work I get that. I also get virus scanning as well. I have to constantly scan systems, which that can take a few hours to scan. But I don't charge people the scanning time. So this is pretty much an hour's work. This is an hour's worth of work. For me, aside from the fact I'm fiddling around doing a video now, but this is about an hour's worth of work at maximum. And then, you know, it depends. Sometimes it depends. If I'm busy during the day and I've got a lot of stuff to do, I'll leave it to do whatever it needs to do, whether it's reinstalling the OS or scanning or whatever and all the other stuff, and I'll leave it while it's doing that, and then I won't touch it till the next day or something like that. So that's the reason sometimes it might take a day or two for the repair for me to complete a repair. That has happened. But I mean, sometimes, look, to be honest, I have had some situations where I've had something ready that afternoon for the client to pick up. That has happened too. So it all varies with the different types of jobs that you get, and it also varies with whether I'm busy or not, or I've got other things that I'm doing, whether it's videos or other bits and pieces as well. So, you know, that's something I get up to as well, as you know. Alright, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much. I'm going to go and get back to backing up the data, basically. But yeah, this is a client's computer, so yeah. Alright, all good. Thank you very much, and stay tuned, I guess. You know, if you want to check out some of my videos on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, feel free to check out my content. I always get a ton of it anyway. I'm also expecting a monitor today, so he's hoping it comes today. Alright, see ya. Bye.